Hello, everybody. I'm Gerri Willis. It's a war of words over the fiscal cliff in Washington. The president blasting Republicans today for their refusal to take his latest offer, calling it puzzling. But Republicans are doubling down on their plan B. House Speaker John Boehner today called the White House veto threat bizarre and irrational. Meanwhile, $500 billion in tax hikes comes ever closer to every American. And with more on the verbal slugfest, Republican Congressman James Lankford of Oklahoma. Congressman, welcome back to the show. Always good to see you. The president had some pretty harsh words for your party today. Here's what he said.
There's got to be, I think, a recognition on the part of my Republican friends that take the deal. But they keep on finding ways to say no. And I don't know how much of that just has to do with, it is very hard for them to say yes to me.
Well, what do you say to that?
It's incredibly sad and frustrating is what that is. The president, through the entire campaign, said he wants a balanced approach, $3 of spending decreases for $1 tax increases. November the 7th comes the day after the election, and he switches it, and now it's not 3-1, it's 1-3. And he says he'll only take $1 spending decrease for $3 of tax increases. And we have said over and over again, this is a spending-driven crisis. We have increased spending from 2007 to 2012, $1 trillion. Year over year, $1 trillion in spending increase. At the same time, from 2007 to 2012, our revenue is at record highs. In fact, people don't realize 2012 had the third highest amount of revenue ever.
Pre-recession, that's right.
That's correct.
Let's talk for a second, though, about the Republican response, because it seems to me we're getting into a real war of words here. Brendan Buck, House Speaker John Boehner's press secretary, said this: the White House's opposition to a backup plan to ensure taxes don't rise on American families is growing more bizarre and irrational by the day. Is this the kind of conversation that's going to get something done in Washington, or is it only going to make people angrier?
Well, the frustration that we've had is the speaker has met with the president day after day now for several weeks. They've had multiple meetings this past week. They've had multiple meetings, sometimes several times a day. Lots of behind-the-scenes stuff. The president's still locked in on $1 of spending decrease for $3 of tax increases, and we've said that just absolutely doesn't solve it. So what we want to do is we want to go back to actually, how do we deal with this? How do we protect as many Americans as possible from the tax increases that are coming?
Yeah, and Boehner said that over and over again, and I get that. But look, there's a war of words out there. People are yelling at each other and calling each other essentially, basically, nasty names. Meanwhile, Fitch, that's one of the big rating agencies that rates this country's debt, here's what they said today. Failure to avoid the fiscal cliff would exacerbate rather than diminish the uncertainty over fiscal policy and tip the U.S. into an unavoidable and unnecessary recession. In such a scenario, that would be an increased likelihood the U.S. would lose its AAA status. Now, you know what that means. You're complaining about the spending we have now. Wait till you see what we're going to have to spend for our debt if we lose that AAA status, because it will cost us more to float our bonds. What's being done right now, not to escalate the war of words, but to find some common ground?
Two things. Negotiations are still happening behind the scenes on the staff level, and then as the House, we're focused on trying to pass a tax policy to protect as many Americans as we can from the tax piece. We'll send that over to the Senate and have them respond. What's not being dealt with right now is the sequestration piece. If the president refuses to deal with the spending side, we have to do this. Remember last summer we were talking about these same issues where the bond folks were saying if there's not real spending reductions, we lose trust on that. And so they gave us a year to be able to find a plan. If that doesn't happen, the automatic spending cuts kick in. If we were to then turn those off, which is what the president's asking to do, to say we won't do those, that sends a signal as well that we're not serious about reducing spending. This is the absolute worst way to reduce spending is the sequestration. But if it's the only option that we've got, it's all that we have.
Well, Congressman Lankford, it's always good to see you. Thanks for coming on the show tonight. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.